Hello, all right. So we are in our fifth week of Crime and Punishment, and we're going to focus on impossible questions, as I like to say, but it's really a focus on strength and confidence in your writing voice. When I give you impossible questions, questions that have a million answers, how do you say firmly and with confidence the one that you're going to defend? We'll just spend a little bit of time this week exploring that topic. Next week, I'm just giving this as a preview, we're going to look at setting in a richer way. We've already talked a tiny bit, about St. Petersburg and the philosophies that were in vogue at the time. But there is so much that makes the life of a book, any book, that is not contained in those neat maps. And I want us to do a mini research project around one of those topics. So here's a list I've compiled that I think gets us someplace, and we could use mine exclusively, but if there is something in the novel that you've read that you're really interested in, an allusion to a particular thought or a philosophy or a character who's representative of some sort of philosophy, there's a lot of allusions to people, famous people who are really in history. Let me know, and we can add that to the list, and we'll make that the course of study next week. But for today, and for this week, an impossible question. So we're really looking in the world of AP literature at Strand 3, which is structure. And I'm asking you to consider two significant events this week. So in a significant event that is related to other events in a plot is something that the AP literature exam might ask you to consider. And the knowledge piece from that is conflict is tension between competing values, either within a character, known as inner or psychological internal conflict, or with outside forces that obstruct a character in some way, known as external conflict. And of course, conflict will be what underlies one of those significant events. It's not going to be a significant event unless it has conflict. Typically, significant events have both internal and external conflict. And so we're going to explore today the internal and external conflicts that work on Raskolnikov. So we're going to pin this down with one difficult or impossible question. I want you to answer this in your paragraph response for today. Why does he confess? Why does he confess? I am being deliberately vague as I give you some ideas right now, but I want you to consider some of these people and what impact they might have had on his confession. Sanya, how is she a reason that he confesses? How is Svidrigailov a reason that he confesses? Danya, Porphyry, how are these people external reasons why Raskolnikov feels the pressure to confess? And then, of course, how is he himself the reason? What is the internal conflict that drives him to that place? All right, so your task is simple and not so simple. I want you to write a paragraph answering the question. There's no need to quote, though you can, because it's creative analysis, it's informal, and because it's such a broad question. But to do this well, don't use overly general language that doesn't pin down a reason. Pick an actual reason. Pick an actual argument, a line of reasoning, if you will, that you could follow through. I know this can be tough because it's an impossible question. We can't say with confidence that we know for sure it is this one thing. But in academic writing, that's the task. You treat it like a debate game. You pick one, the one that seems the most compelling to you. You can always use counterclaims. You can always say, and secondarily, this is also a really big factor, but you're going to have a central argument. Whether that central argument is a character, this person is the reason, or if your central argument is a concept, the promise of redemption. But either way, our task in academic writing is to come up with that reason instead of saying something with vagaries. So in short, be confident in your response. Be confident because the evidence you have seen for your reason is so strong. The only reason to be meek and unsure in academic voice is because you haven't seen evidence for your perspective. But of course, that wouldn't be a good argument. We avoid that unless it's the artistic flourishes of the conclusion, which is its own category. But for just your creative analysis paragraph, I'd like you to pick something that you think is a pretty compelling reason. This, of course, is your question. Why does he confess in the end? And then I'd like you to designate whether your reasoning includes internal or external conflict, just to get comfortable using those literary terms. So here is a non-example that I made because I don't want to give you an example. Might give away or might take reasoning that you want for yourself, but I can give you a non-example. This is an example of a paragraph response that has not enough confidence in its academic argument. The academic voice, that's not really part of today because that's Wednesdays, but just your reasoning should be strong and confident, and that can come up in creative analysis. So this is what it would look like without that. And you can pause to read what I wrote here, but I'll highlight some words. I write impossible to say, maybe or maybe, who can say, sort of, halfway, perhaps, almost like. It's very complicated. The whole paragraph is true. It's not untrue, the stuff in this, but it's not picking up a good reason and holding it and saying, look at the evidence for this compelling thought that I have, which is what, of course, makes for exciting writing. It's what makes for exciting ideas. It's what allows you to stack an argument in an interesting and meaningful way. And I'd just like to point out why I love literature in this way. It's not real. These are artifices. This is a made-up story. And so we can feel some confidence in judging the characters and in creating our arguments without fear of reprisal, because it is literature, it is art. And that is what is so fun about building confidence in writing voice. I look forward to seeing real models of this since I'm not providing one today. Have fun with it and let me know if I can help.